Lying in the heart of the United States is a city that has a long, rich history of being a cultural and artistic mecca. With over 2.7 million residents living in the metropolitan area, it's no wonder Chicago has grown into one of the most populous and diverse cities, not only in the United States, but also the world. Because of its central location relative to the east and west coasts, Chicago has served as the melting pot of innovative ideas from people of many different cultural and racial backgrounds. Consequently, these cultural differences have had profound influences on the creation and advancement of various social aspects, such as music, architecture, and especially public art. Chicago has always been at the forefront of supporting the creation of public art in various open spaces around the city. Unfortunately, during the early 1870s, support for public art was dampened by economic depression and was further compounded by the Great Fire of Chicago in 1871, which destroyed 3.3 square miles of the city and left over 100,000 people homeless. 20 years later, in 1893, Chicago's love for the arts would be reinvigorated as the city hosted the World's Columbian Exposition to celebrate the 400th anniversary of Christopher Columbus's discovery of the New World. The 6-month fair, which covered over 600 acres of land, boasted various styles of architecture, sculptures, and paintings, and attracted over 27 million visitors during that time. It would be at the World's Fair that Mary Cassatt's Modern Woman and Mary McMoney's Primitive Woman murals would be credited with inaugurating an era of mural painting in Chicago, as well as all of the United States. When the U.S. entered World War I in 1914, a large hole in Chicago's industrial workforce was created, and the need for factories to create supplies for the troops significantly increased. This spawned an increased demand for labor, opening the door for Latino migrant workers, who flocked to the Midwest in pursuit of these open jobs. After the war had ceased, in 1918, many Latino workers had settled down, starting families and congregating in neighborhoods with other Latinos, mainly on the west side of Chicago. Though Latinos had played an integral role in the United States' success in World War I, they still found that discrimination and racism continued to persist. During this same time, across America's southern border, the muralist movement was beginning to take hold in Mexican society. Spearheaded by muralists Jose Clemente Orozco, Diego Rivera, and David Alfaro Silleros, Los Tres Grandes, as they became known as, were creating famous murals on walls, government buildings, and schools. As they began to spread social and political messages, Rivera's wife, Frida Kahlo, a successful artist in her own right, would also have significant impacts, not only in art, but as the face of sweeping social change for women. Los Tres Grandes would have a significant impact on the style and impact of murals, not only in Mexico, but eventually in the United States, as they were often commissioned to create murals in the United States. For example, Rivera was commissioned by the Rockefeller family to paint a mural in the Rockefeller Center. The mural, titled Man at the Crossroads, was stylistically and aesthetically stunning, but the mural was immediately removed due to its political and social connotations. Silleros' America Tropical endured the same fate, as it was whitewashed due to its political implications, though it was later restored by the Getty Conservation Institute. Orozco's Epic of American Civilization, painted in the basement of Dartmouth College's Baker Berry Library, was also considered controversial, as the murals challenged traditional American thinking on topics such as colonialism, education, and religion. While these murals were met with harsh backlash, the artists' ability to spark debate through their art, in addition to their style, undoubtedly influenced American muralists and their work in the United States. The works of these Mexican muralists would come to be even more influential during the Great Depression, when President Franklin D. Roosevelt created the Works Progress Administration as part of his New Deal policy to jumpstart the economy. The WPA employed millions of people in Chicago and throughout the country to carry out public works projects, which included artists who began to paint murals on the walls of federal buildings such as post offices, government buildings, and public schools. The WPA gave American muralists and painters the opportunity to voice their political and social beliefs into their works, which was further inspired by the works of Los Tres Grandes, as they often depicted working-class Americans, as well as the struggles of Latinos and other minorities in America. A prominent example of this resides within Chicago's City Hall, where Edward Millman, the state director for the Federal Arts Program in Illinois, was commissioned to paint The Blessings of Water, a fresco-style mural. Millman actually traveled to Mexico in order to study under Diego Rivera, whose style and ideas are ingrained within the mural. While there are subtle differences between the styles of Millman and Rivera, Millman's murals stand as a reference toward how much of an impact these Mexican muralists had on the mural murals of Chicago. As the Second World War broke out, the U.S. was, again, in need of more labor to fill factory and industrial jobs, which provided supplies to the Army overseas. As a result, in 1942, the United States government signed the Mexican Farm Labor Agreement, also known as the Bracero Program, which allowed for migrant workers from Mexico to come to the U.S. in order to work during the war. Latino workers flooded across the border, including 15,000 workers who moved to Chicago alone in order to work. The Bracero program lasted much longer past the end of World War II, continuing for 22 years until its termination in 1964. During this 22-year period, more than 55,000 Latinos had come to Chicago and settled down in the West Side neighborhoods such as Pilsen. Though many Latino immigrants came to the U.S. in search of better life through the contracts that they were given by the Bracero program, many Latinos found that they were receiving unfair pay and treatment by employers and American society as a whole. The mass immigration of Latino workers to the U.S. through the Bracero program led to a dramatic increase in the Latino population, not only in Chicago, but all of the country. This increase in Latino population meant that there was a need for increased representation of Latinos in order to voice their concerns over the exploitation of Bracero workers, discrimination in the workplace, as well as racism in everyday society. Latinos across the United States began to protest these injustices, as well as the negative stereotypes that portrayed them in the media and in society, and thus giving birth to the Chicano movement. Heightened by increased political activism and cultural pride, Chicanos sought to educate through visual arts, music, dance, literature, theater, and other forms of media. This consequently led to the start of the Chicano art movement, which took hold in major cities across the U.S., including Chicago, where a new generation of Latinx artists were beginning to shape the image of Chicago. Surrounding neighborhoods such as Pilsen became the canvas for many mural artists, both old and new, to teach society about the different cultures and lifestyle that those who reside in the neighborhood share. As more and more Latinos began to move into Pilsen, Latino and other muralists such as Mario Castillo, Jeff Zimmerman, and Hector Duarte began to create murals on the walls of buildings around Chicago's West Side neighborhood. Both as a means of political and social activism, Pilsen soon became the centerpiece for the Mexican mural movement, and soon would become known more for the beautiful murals that decorated the neighborhood, rather than just the area of Chicago where all of the Latino immigrants lived. One of the first murals that would bring the public's attention to the neighborhood was Castillo's Metafisico, or Peace Mural, which was painted on the side of the Halsted Urban Progress Center located on the corner of 19th Street and Halsted Street. This mural was an attempt to give validity to the Mexican identity, and one of the first to challenge the U.S. government's choice to invade Vietnam. A year later, Castillo, in association with a group of students from various ethnic backgrounds, would collaborate on a similar mural titled Wall of Brotherhood, which would garner more publicity than Metaphysica. Both murals were paid as homages to Castillo's pre-Columbian and Latino heritage, which many residents in the surrounding area could relate to. Castillo's murals would lead Pilsen into a mural renaissance era, in which other artists would begin to express their own social and political ideas publicly through the creation of murals. Artists began to form social activist groups such as Chicago's Prevent World War III, which was a group of 10 artists who painted murals such as Fallen Dictator, protesting the United States' involvement in other countries' government affairs. Prevent World War III's mural is constantly changing, tending to reflect on the current political climate, most recently involving the 2016 elections between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. More importantly, though many of the murals that have covered many of the buildings in Pilsen have been used as a means of reclaiming and reshaping the identity of Latinos that had been lost through the systematic racism and stereotypical media coverage of Latinxes. Muralists such as Hector Duarte and Jeff Zimmerman have used their murals in Pilsen in order to shed a positive light on the Latino community and inspire the residents of Pilsen to have pride in their heritage, while also trying to break the stereotypical Latino mold that American society has cast upon them. In 2005, Duarte painted the entire exterior of his house with his murals Gulliver in Wonderland, which is a spin on the old folktale, Gulliver's Travels. In the mural, Duarte portrays Gulliver as a Mexican immigrant attempting to break free from the barbed wire that holds him down, a reference toward various barriers that hold back immigrants in America. Gulliver in Wonderland has become an iconic staple within the community. Additionally, Zimmerman's Increíbles Las Cosas que se ven is a series of 3 panels and murals that illustrate the culture, work ethic, and abilities that Latinos have, contrary to what mainstream media would have the public believe. In one of the panels, the words "Si se puede," meaning yes you can, serve as a reminder to not only the Latino community, but to all spectators who see the murals of the power and strength that all Latinos have inside of themselves. Pilsen boasts an array of other murals that not only promote Latino culture and identity, but also tackle a number of issues such as gender equality, peace and love, as exemplified by Sam Kirk and Sandra Anton Giorgi, Weaving Cultures, and Gaia's Quetzalcoatl and the Stork. These murals, along with the many others, have not only served as a means of drawing attention to this Latino community, but have served as a beacon of hope and prosperity to Latinos all over the world through the power of art. Muralism in Chicago has a long and complex history that forever changed the way in which ideals and messages are conveyed. Murals in Chicago have been able to unite communities, spread social and political messages, and be a beacon of hope and prosperity for Latinos as well as other minorities. The way that an artist can make their murals relatable to his or her audience can have a profound effect on the impact that these murals have made on their community. Latino artists have used this medium as a means of empowerment, regaining the Latino identity and showing the world that Latinos are more than the stereotypes by which they have been wrongly associated with.